Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Seed Speaks. My name is Ashley Robinson, and I'm the editor of the Alberta Seed Guide. Today, I'll be acting as your host for this episode. And on today's episode of Seed Speaks, we're taking a closer look at the world of brown bag seed sales and the impact it has on the industry. So I'd like to thank our guests here for being with us today, which we have Anthony Parker, Bryan Gerard, and Jodee Karlowsky for joining us today. I'm sorry, Jodee, for struggling on your name there. And let's first off just get started with getting to know our guests. So our first guest here is Anthony. So can you please tell me a bit about yourself and what exactly the Plant Breeders' Rights Office for Canada is?
Yeah. Hi, Ashley. Thanks very much for the invitation. We appreciate it. So my name is Anthony Parker. I'm the Commissioner of Plant Breeders' Rights in Canada. So what that means is I issue intellectual property protection for plant varieties, very similar to how an inventor can come and apply for a patent on their invention. Well, in my world, what we do is we issue those intellectual property rights. And then when they are granted those intellectual property rights, that developer, that breeder of the variety, has exclusive rights over that variety.
Thank you, Anthony. I know you're going to have so many insightful things to say. I've talked about this topic with me in the past today, so I'm really excited for our discussion today. And Bryan, thanks so much for being here. So can you tell me a bit about yourself and JoMar Seeds?
Yes, thanks, Ashley. I am a co-owner and president of JoMar Seeds, and we are a wheat licensing company headquartered in northern Indiana. And what we do is we are not a breeding program, but we represent breeding programs and license their varieties to seed companies who have their own brands. And then we also obviously manage intellectual property from the perspective of the customer and also from the breeding programs.
Thanks, Bryan. And certainly last but not least, Jodee, can you tell me about yourself and Alliance Seed?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having us. I'm Jodee Karlowsky. I'm the general manager of Alliance Seeds. So Alliance Seeds is owned by 3 Canadian grain companies, Parrish and Heimbecker, Patterson Grain, and Northwest Terminals. So we basically license and distribute varieties from plant breeders, similar to what JoMar Seeds does, but we're in Western Canada, and we basically function in the wheat, barley, oats, and peas sector. So yeah, that's what we do.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And to anyone watching, as we're having the discussion today, if you have any questions for our panelists, just pop those in the chat box and we'll try to ask them live during the discussion. So now let's get started with that discussion. And so first off, I think we need some more information on exactly what brown bag seed sales are and why they're illegal. So maybe I'll let Bryan start, and then Anthony and Jodee, you guys can add some stuff in.
Well, from a U.S. perspective, we have a pretty broad intellectual property toolbox to operate from. And so any sale of seed that is outside of that intellectual property would be considered brown bag sale. So an example would be maybe a grower saves seed of a variety that's either certified, protected by PVP Title V, or as we have in the United States, the right to patent varieties. And then in the case of PVP Title V, they can actually save seed for their own use, but they're not allowed to sell that to other growers unless they have a license to do so. So that would be the definition of brown bag. And obviously that cuts into revenue coming back to the seed companies and the breeding programs, which a significant portion of that revenue then is put back into new investment and to new innovation and inventions.
Thank you. And Anthony, can you tell me a bit more from the Canadian side, maybe?
Yeah, it really sort of mimics what Bryan has said. We usually talk about legal or brown bag sales in the context of plant breeders' rights. So an entity will have, like Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada will have exclusive rights over a variety that they've bred and developed. They will then have licensed to someone else. In Canada, of course, for many varieties, it's okay for farmers to save and reuse seed of a protected variety for their own purposes on their own holdings. But where we run afoul and what's illegal to do and a contravention of the law is when you start selling that variety to someone else. So what happens is the individual starts profiteering off of the sale of that variety, which they did not pay for the full cost for development of, and it prevents a revenue stream going back to the breeder. And that's really important because that revenue that the breeder receives gets reinvested into developing new varieties to bring better varieties to farmers. So the act of brown bag seed sales is very, very harmful to the sector.
Thank you. And Jodee, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think everybody covered everything pretty much from A to B. So that was a much better explanation than I would ever give on it. So,
well, we have a great group here, so I know we're going to have every question covered really well. And so, Anthony, I know you don't just know things about Canada when it comes to brown bag seed sales or intellectual property. So can you tell me about the actual laws around these seed sales?
Yeah, so I mean, in different countries will have different laws associated with plant breeders' rights. Generally, though, for many countries, if you look to European Union, if you look to our friends south of the border in the U.S., you look into Latin America, there is some commonalities. Most countries are part of an international agreement called UPOV, and really outline the same rights more or less in each individual country. So you can look at various jurisdictions around the world, and the same thing will happen in Canada, that this idea of taking someone else's intellectual property and selling that without authorization would be an infringement of the law. So, typically it's up to the breeder to enforce. So the breeder has to do things to say, once they've found someone who's infringing, send a cease and desist letter is usually the first step in the process. But if someone multiple infringes and refuses or ignores that, then really the process that you have to go through is to file a claim with the courts, and then it becomes a civil matter.
Thank you, Anthony. And now let's talk a bit about actually what these sales are. So let's talk about some examples that you guys have seen in the past of brown bag seed sales. And maybe I'll start with you, Jodee.
So for Alliance Seed, I guess we pretty much investigate whatever rumors we have. So that's one of the parts of brown bag seed sales, is investigating rumors. We've been involved in a few settlements. We're kind of a bit of a newer company, but we were involved in 2021. Alliance Seed, CCAN, and another seed company settled a PBR infringement case that cost the infringer about $738,000. And the settlement was reached after the infringer conceded to making unauthorized advertisements and illegal seed sales of several PBR protected varieties. So we've been involved in a few, but if you Google PBR infringement, there's been a lot of cases on record. So we're always investigating. We're always following up on anything we hear, and we will take things to civil court. And that's because we are obliged by the license that we hold with the breeder. That's what we have to do. So
thank you, Jodee. That's really good to give some background on what you guys yourselves are doing to fight these illegal sales on that front. Bryan, what have you seen yourself in regards to illegal sales?
Well, speaking in first of all, like in the eastern U.S., that is where you would have more of the mobile seed cleaner, where they will go onto the farm, clean and potentially treat the seed for the farmer right there. And then in that cleaning, they may also offer it out for sale, or themselves if there's excess, or the grower who has had more clean than what they're going to grow would then offer that for sale to his or her neighbors who also are growers. In the West, you still have the mobile seed cleaners, but you also have more of those that are permanent, maybe seed houses that have the ability to clean and treat seed. They've grown the seed, and they have more than what they're going to use once again for their own farm. So they decide to sell that to their neighbors or to, other customers wherever they may be geographically. And obviously, if they don't have the rights to do that, if the variety is protected, whether it's PVP Title V, which is certified a variety or a patent, then they don't have the legal right to do that. And that actually then takes away seed sales from companies like Alliance, who have their own brand, who are, professionally growing seed, working very hard for purity and for quality, and obviously what all goes into the bag, but also the support that goes beyond the bag, that goes right out into the fields throughout the year. So, the grower, when they either participate in brown bag, whether it's being the seller or the buyer, they're taking that element away from themselves, and they're also taking it from the seed industry at a large.
Thank you. And Anthony, what have you seen for examples of these sales?
Yeah, again, as the administrator of Plant Breeders' Rights, we don't get a lot of insight into what the industry is doing to enforce their rights. But I think what Jodee is indicated is we have seen some fairly high-profile cases. We haven't seen one that has gone completely through the court system. Generally, the defendant is going to settle out of these court cases. But what I would say is we do anticipate in future that the settlements will be higher. And there's a very good reason for that. In 2015, Canada moved to UPOV 91, which is a stronger form of intellectual property rights that has now made not just the seller of brown bag seed sales culpable for damages when an infringement has occurred, but also the purchaser, right? And it goes farther than that. It goes to the point that if the breeder has not had an opportunity to exercise his or her rights on the sale of the seed, it can now move to the harvested material or the grain. So things can go bad quite quickly if folks are out there selling illegal seed on a protected variety that is under UPOV 91 or PBR 91. It's no longer just simply the sale of the seed, but any harvested material or grain that's produced from that illegal sales can now be subject to a civil suit as well. So I think the warning is out there that you really need to take this seriously and follow the law, because we are concerned as we look into the future that if someone's a multiple infringer of varieties and has been profiteering, the settlements will become much larger in future.
Thank you. And Bryan, I know you're involved with both ASTA and Seeds Canada. So can you tell me a bit about what their stances are on these illegal sales and what they've done to push back against them?
Yes, Ashley, and I feel pretty comfortable because I do sit on the board of both. So I feel comfortable in the response. But both the American Seed Trade Association and Seeds Canada, they actually support, protect, and promote the intellectual property tools that are available in their country. They want to see that respected. They want to provide education. And then obviously the members want to be able to utilize that and utilize, with their customer, both on the front side of the sale, but also on the back side of reinvestment into whether it's a non-breeding company reinvested into their own to bring better service, better quality seed, more knowledge of the seed, or whether it's the breeding program themselves on innovation. And I think it's really important as it relates to cereals, specifically on wheat, because a lot of times in a company's investment or innovation budget, wheat may be farther down the road than what corn, soybeans, canola may be. And so being able to capture what should be available in the market is really important. I know at the American Seed Trade Association, we have an organization we call SIPA, or the Seed Innovation Protection Alliance. And they help on educating growers. They put out ads. They provide a tip line for people who want to maybe report offenders they're aware of. I don't have a total for just wheat, but if you combine soybeans and wheat and lettuce infringement in the U.S. on an annual basis, it comes out to about $800 million of an infringement on both public and private, the private sector on breeding. So you can see it's a lot of money that can be withdrawn. And the other part that SIPA does is really trying to promote the understanding of the value of seed innovation and that need for protection, and how that really does value the grower, and that taking that longer term approach to success on their farm is going to bring them a lot more value than maybe looking at short-term options on a way of what they look at as cutting costs.
Thank you. And Jodee, I know you've spoken out before on the past about this issue. So can you tell me a bit more about how it impacts your business?
Yeah, definitely. First off, I think that people should know that Alliance Seed is a company that's owned by 3 Canadian companies. And we don't receive government funding, and we don't receive any money from Monsanto or whoever you want to have assign the role of Big Brother. So the impact of brown bag seed sales on Alliance Seed is significant, not only for us, but for plant breeders and seed growers and farmers in Western Canada. So for us, the most immediate impact is in lost royalties and revenue to the seed companies like us, the plant breeders and seed growers. So it goes all the way down the chain. When an authorized seed grower sells seed of our PBR protected varieties, they pay a levy to the company that's holding the marketing and distribution rights for that specific seed variety. And part of this levy goes to support the plant breeder, whether that's Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, the Crop Development Center, a private breeder like Lima Grain, or a small private breeder like Oat Advantage. They all go to support that. So brown bag seed sales bypass that system and cause a loss of revenue for the plant breeder and the seed company. It goes all the way down the chain, and it's a lost sale for the authorized seed grower. So the loss of revenue hinders the development and the distribution and the production of new seed varieties, which are essential for growers to have access to the best varieties they can buy with yield, disease resistance, and continuous improvement. That's something we all want. And of course, the second impact for us is in investigation costs. Detecting and preventing illegal seed sales requires time, effort, and financial resources. And companies like Alliance Seed and others must allocate resources quickly to investigate suspected cases of brown bagging, and these costs add up and impact profitability. And of course, seed companies invest heavily in building and maintaining their brand integrity. I think Bryan referenced this. So that includes efforts to ensure quality, reliability, and traceability of our products. When brown bag seed sales occur, the seed source and quality can't be guaranteed. So this can erode the trust and reputation that a seed company has worked hard to establish and impacts market share. And ultimately, there are long-term impacts of brown bagging on innovation. Funds generated through authorized seed sales and royalties played a crucial role in supporting plant breeding programs. And when these funds are lost due to brown bag seed sales, it hinders investment and development. And as well, new entrants to the market might be discouraged if they don't believe there's a return on investment. So new entrants bring innovation and competition, and most growers say that they want more competition in agriculture, not less.
Thank you so much. Those are all really good points and really add to it. Anthony, do you have something to add there? I see you came off mute.
Well, no, I don't. I think, Jodee summarized that, when an individual is selling brown bag seed, it's very much, profiteering and self-interested, and everyone else in the value chain bears the costs of that, right? So it creates a distortion in the marketplace. You have farmers who are buying certified seed, they're playing by the rules. Well, they're getting penalized for doing that while someone else is making money off of someone else's innovation. I think, as Jodee said, we had a strong culture of supporting our public sector breeding entities here in Canada, and those royalties are very much a high, high value to those. We talk about wanting to support breeding. Well, you support breeding by playing by the rules and paying your fair share. And those royalties go to Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. They go to Crop Development Center. They go to Olds College. They go to small and medium startups like Oat Advantage. Jim Dick trying to make a living breeding oats, and they go to also new entrants in the marketplace. So I think the message is, if we're seen as an infringing country, it's very, very difficult to attract investment. And I've had these conversations internally, with seed companies looking to invest in Canada, and a lot of the messaging is, you're very nice people, you're polite, but you have individuals who steal seed, and that factors into those investment decisions. And when it factors into the breeding, when you're now derailing a source of revenue that's not going back to the breeding program, you're inhibiting that breeding company or that public institution to develop better varieties for you in future. You don't want a situation where instead of putting money to R&D and breeding, a company or has to spend its revenue on fighting a claim in court for PBR infringement, which could be very, very expensive. So, I think the message is, I think most people, when they understand the impact, want to do the right thing. And I think education is the key here, that act of self-interest, that act of profiteering off of someone else's innovation, everyone else in the value chain ends up bearing the cost for that.
Definitely. And you guys have really been answering, I think, my next question, which is, as if I'm a farmer right now watching this, why should I really care about this and not want to take part? So maybe, Bryan, I'll let you tackle that one first.
Yeah. And before I go there, Ashley, I'd like to build on something that Jodee said earlier, and that actually the more prominent the brown bagging is, you're actually going to stifle competition, and you're going to have less investment, not just in pure dollars, but by a number of companies. So in the end, the grower is going to hurt him or herself because they're going to have less breeding programs to choose genetics from. Number one reason now beyond, I think there's several reasons why to buy new seed. Number one is the quality that the professional seed companies put out is amazing. And then you look at on the seed technology with the seed treatment so that are available, and having those properly put on the seed, I think is also very important. But there's another piece that I think is really exciting, and I'll once again relay this specifically to wheat. The genome was finally mapped, I think, in the last 5 to 6 years. So the wheat breeders of the world are going to have such better understanding of the genome and how to use that genome to develop varieties. And then you look at some of the breeding techniques available today, or hopefully available today, like gene editing. So the ability to take a crop that brings tremendous value both to soil health, being able to deal with climate change, getting these new and improved varieties that can adapt to the changes that are going on in the world, and also meeting the needs of consumers. Consumers are more demanding now than ever before. They have a platform that they can make their voice heard, whether it's just a small voice, but if it becomes very loud, then it becomes a powerful influencer into the marketplace. And I think it's an exciting time. And that is why, if I'm a grower, especially in a crop of cereals or pulses, I want to provide every opportunity for the breeders to provide, great opportunity for me to flourish on my farm, keep it sustainable, and allow me to pass that on to the next generation.
Yeah, those are all really good points. And I think that's a really good thing to focus on, the fact that we do have so many great future opportunities and crops that are coming out right now. And I always like to remind people, it takes so long to develop a new crop. Like, you can't just snap your fingers and ask for this new, like if you're facing a new disease, you won't get a new crop variety that next year that will solve all those problems, but you might in a handful of years down the road, because there will be a plant breeder working on making a new variety that will help you there. So you just got to be patient, but you also have to take advantage of those new varieties when they come out. Jodee, sorry?
No, that's right. If you think about that, Ashley, is that the crosses that were made this year, really at the earliest will be available to a grower in like 2029 or 2030. So trying for breeders to project ahead, but also continue to have that revenue so they can continue to make those new varieties, make them meet what they're predicting is going to be needed in the future, and get them to the market quicker is essential.
And yeah, there's so much to talk about. I think we could go on and on, but I think maybe let's get into talking a bit more about how this really impacts the future of breeding, which we've been talking about so far. But let's go into a bit more detail with it. Jodee, what would you like to add on how this really impacts the future of the plant varieties that we see available?
Well, I think we pretty much sort of talked about that a little bit, but I would say it's pretty simple that if we don't have plant breeding, we don't have innovation, and we lose our competitive advantage. I think we've done a lot of work in Canada to have that Canadian advantage and be known as a country that wants to be innovative and provides a good high quality product. But it's just like it's been said here before, that if we have something happen that we don't have a way to deal with a new disease or a new pest, or even if you're thinking about the weird weather we've been having over Canada in the last couple of years, and we want drought tolerance, we want things like that. How are we going to get that if we don't invest into it? So plant breeding is the only way to do that. And if you don't invest in certified seed and buy certified seed, that won't happen.
Definitely all really good to mention. Is there anything that Bryan or Anthony would like to add there?
I mean, I think Jodee nailed it right on the head. Is if you look into the future, there's so many challenges that we're going to be facing. In terms of climate change, in terms of pressure to reduce inputs, and pressure in terms of food security in Canada being, a provider, hopefully a global superpower in terms of providing that. In order to get there, we need to further stimulate. We need to kickstart our plant breeding, and the only way we're going to do that is by ensuring that there's strong intellectual property rights, and those property rights are respected. That we have a free and fair marketplace, and that we have ample competition to get there. So it's pretty critical to our future that we abide by the IP rules and we pay our fair share. And I think that's how success is going to come.
And to follow that up, Ashley, because I think once again, a lot of this conversation around farmer safe seed or brown bag, either one is really based in cereals. And first of all, farmer safe seed, that's farmer's privilege. That's more of a global term. And I know Anthony can probably vouch for this. That's something that is sacred and something that the industry understands. Although I know in the US, we also have patents, but for the most part, it's something that the entire industry respects and understands. But when you take in the percent of acreage that goes to legal farmer safe seed, and then the acreage that goes to illegal farmer safe seed in the US, and then brown bagging, that the wheat acreage is now down to about 20% on the average of new seed sales. So when you look at, does a company want to make an investment into a marketplace where there's only 20% of the market available? And then what kind of return can you get out of that market? And how long can you get a return out of the market? You can see the stress that puts on from a budgetary planning, from projecting ahead, and trying to decide where is it best to invest my dollars to create innovation. And you can see what innovations can be done. I think probably 15 years ago, no one would have thought wheat would not have been the #1 crop in Western Canada. And I think now it's been canola for the last several years. And it's just strictly innovation, and in the end, grower investment in that innovation has allowed that to continue to grow.
Thank you. And I think you played really well into kind of the question that I want to end off today with, which is we talked a lot about North America and the impact here. So how do we stack North America up to different regions around the world? Like, what is the brown bag seed sale situation like outside of North America? So maybe I'll let Anthony take this one first.
Yeah, sure. There's a study that was conducted in 2012, and I know Bryan was part of it. And it was done by the International Seed Federation, and it examined what was the royalty efficiency rates across several countries globally. And it included many European countries, it included the US, but it also included Latin American countries. And it was just as Bryan depicted in the US, is the same what we experience here in Canada, particularly with cereals, is you have this sort of portion of the pie. And the portion of the pie kind of goes like this. Now, it will vary from year to year, and Jodee might correct me, good years versus bad years. Years when farmers are profitable might try new varieties. When they're not, they might go back to saving or using seed. But it is along the line of about 20% of the acreage is legal certified seed purchase. About 60% of the acreage is farm safe seed, which is also here legal in Canada. Of course, there's some issues with that too, as well as Bryan said, it was fair compensation on that. But we're looking at about 20% is outright illegal brown bag sales. And you got to think of it in terms of any other industry. Could you have a successful, movie industry, literature industry, innovation industry, when 20% of what is out there in the marketplace is illegal in nature? And it'd be very, very difficult. So in that study of about 14, 15 countries, Canada placed last. And I think that doesn't suit us well for the future of innovation in certain crop types if we continue along that route.
That's not good to hear. Not the best notes to end on, but I think it also just points to that we there is opportunities and there's a lot that we can do. Bryan and Jodee, is there anything that you guys would like to add?
No, not for me. I just think that it was a really great discussion. Yeah, I hope it changes somebody's mind about what they're going to do.
No, and actually, I just appreciate the platform for this conversation and for Seed World Canada to be a voice for the seed industry and be a source of information for the seed industry.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I would say the same, Ashley. It's an important topic, and it's something that needs to change moving into the future. So appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak about it today.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. I think we could go on for a lot longer about this because there are so many different aspects and stuff, and it's something I've looked into myself in past and previous reporting, and I know it's something that we will need to continue reporting on and making sure that we explain all the different intricacies of it. But thank you all for being here today. And for those watching, thank you for tuning in. And if you missed part of today's live stream, don't worry. We'll have it available on demand on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And if you have any questions about this subject or ideas for future topics we should tackle, feel free to send myself a message or send it to any of our Seed World Facebook pages. And next week, tune in for our last week of the political realm that we're tackling when Mark Zinkowitz has some guests on to chat about the European seed regulations. Thanks for watching today and have a great rest of your day.